It's recording. I'm not promising that it's live.
Okay, well, Elaine is on live. Anybody wants to watch? Okay, it's 6:01, we'll call this bar meeting order. And roll call, everybody's here. Jeremy, Heath, Tim, Sean, and Carol. Yeah, that's great. Okay. So, item number 3, public body comment.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Last meeting, we had a lot of discussion about investments of the money off the sale of the farm. We have, how many acres is it total?
It's like 197.3, close to 200.
Okay.
Some of them have been calling it 2, and it's 1.
Okay, let's call it 2. Let's say we get this money from the sale of the farm, and we're going to invest it. What kind of investment numbers are we talking over the last, let's say, couple of years? What's a common number right now? Do you know? Anybody?
CDs are making 6.5%, I think.
Okay.
They are?
Yeah, I'd like to see one.
6 month ones.
Oh, is
The
that
ones
down?
I've seen are sounding like 5.4 for,
And that might be, like, we were discussing it at church, I think, and they were 6.5 for 7 months.
okay.
5.4, I was just at all the banks up here yesterday, 5.4.
Okay. So let's say it's an even 5% for fairness. I mean, yeah, I guess that sounds like a good number compared to the 0.01 we were getting a few years ago. I mean, there was nothing. And of course, savings doesn't draw nothing. But when you look into the way that our monies are being invested, I just happen to have a whole stack of statements. So we've got a 1.1, 0, 1, 1.01, 0.12. And these are 2 different banks, 0.5. Let me just put in the middle here, 1.01, another 1.01. Here's a 1.12 again, 1.01, 1%. Lots of 1s, 0.5s, 1.26, there's a biggie. So we've got millions of dollars, and I think it would be fair to say that by and far, based on those just, going through there, and you can look through them if you want, but they're mine, that we're talking about 1%, okay? We're not talking about 15%. When you pull a crop off that farm and you put it in the bank and you can invest it at, let's say 5%, put it in a CD for 5%, every year, you can add to your dollar amount, make more money. But the current state of our investment policies is not to make money, apparently, because all of our accounts could go through the Illinois First program. I think the last I knew it was 5.25, something like that. So we're already missing out on 4% there. So if you take the 4%, let's say an average of 4% on, I don't know how many millions in the budget right now. I can't tell. It's millions. It's more than enough to pay our bills a couple years over. And then we've got tax money coming in. That's a lot of money when you miss 4% on that kind of dollars. If you've got 50,000 and you miss 4%, not a big amount, but you start putting $1 million behind it, you got a lot of money. So you take that, everybody's talking about liability. I don't know how the rest of y'all, I think some of you guys know about cash rent. I know about what kind of liability there is if you own a piece of ground. Jeremy, you should know. I know Heath knows. There is no liability. There's none. It's 200 acres times whatever the bid was, and you put the money in the bank. It's done. There's no liability. If everything dries up and goes to crap, that's just the risk the farmer takes. It's not the risk on the county, it's risk on the farmer. So that liability issue is gone with cash rent, and that's what I advocate for, because we all can't seem to get along to negotiate anything else. We've kind of made our local vendors angry because we don't want to pay our bills. That's our fault. We have to correct that. But when you start talking about this many accounts, this isn't all of them, and that kind of dollar amount, and then our treasurer sat over here a couple meetings ago and said, well, but we don't really need 40,000. I got news. This is a community of what, 26,000 people? You take that 40,000, all the interest lost on this, all that interest adds up. And I doubt very much that anytime soon any of you or anyone on the board that has farm ground or stands near farm ground, a lot of us have farm ground in our family. I doubt any one of you is going to put a for sale sign in the front of your field. So this notion of it not being, not having a public purpose and all that nonsense, I haven't seen anybody with the actual balls to go to the state and say, look, here's the deal. I want to sit down with somebody. I want to get this done once and for all. Has there been a determination that it's unlawful? There hasn't. And the next thing we can do is, if we're concerned about that being an issue, we've had a rescue squad issue solved recently using our legislator. So why not propose an amendment that, it's been determined that the purpose of the income off the farm is to supplement the running of our government. And then we're done. But nobody wants to do that. They want to sit and tear a little piece of paper into strips and say why they want to sell it. I've had constituents, I'm not currently a board member, but I will be. I've had more than I can count call me and say, what is the end game? This has been going on since 21. This isn't just a fleeting thought. And my way of thinking, if you're here to sell our farm, you probably need to resign, because people are not going to put up with it. And that goes for all y'all. I'm not looking at Carol because I know where her heart is. I think I know what Tim feels about it. And Heath and I have talked about it. Jeremiah had words. Sean, I'm sorry, I don't know you very well. You come to meetings, we appreciate you being here. I hope you listen to each of us and ask us if you have questions. But when it comes right down to it, if you're on our farm committee and you don't want to see our farm tended to as it has been, you need to find a different committee or quit. Because these people out here is a pretty good representation of what your constituents expect. And my constituents are honked. And these are people that farm. And they know what the risks are. They do it every year. They do it every season. They take a risk every time. But you know what? They keep doing it. And there's going to be years they're not going to make a lot of money, and then there's going to be years they do. But the easiest way to get through this is to start farming our ground, put our money in the bank, and when the state's attorney, or when the attorney general, if there would be a time that they would come at us and say, here's your letter, it's not constitutional. The next step to handle that, the way the law works, is you go to your legislator and you ask for, how do we make it constitutional? Solve the problem. We all somehow lose our problem-solving abilities. I think we need to start thinking about how we solve problems. We don't quit, give up, and sell. What the hell would our world be if we just quit every time we said, well, somebody told me I couldn't, so I couldn't? It's time that we really think about realistically what your constituents want. And I know what mine want. They want this nonsense to be over. What are they going to do? There's been all these threats about what they would do here and there. They'd file charges against us. What are they going to do, send it to Vietnam? You're a county board member. You're supposed to do with the rules that you see. Your job is not to determine if it's constitutional. That is their job. And if you need help with that, there's numbers you can call. There's people you can sit down with. And I'm sure that there would be a couple of people, even that are non-board members, that would go with you to ask some questions. That would be important. So I think we need to try a little bit harder to find a solution, because, boy, if you give up in life that easy, that's really a problem.
Any other public body comment? Tricia?
As farm chair, are you able to put on the agenda to rescind the sale of the county farm for the next board meeting?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
And my question is anybody that voted to sell the farm, will you consider rescinding the sale? Mr. Marks?
I wanted to table it so I could get some input from my new state's attorney and do some more research, and it didn't go twice, so.
Well, it's already rescinded. It's already been voted to sell. So it would need to be, and able to do that, we would need to rescind the vote. So would you be willing to vote to rescind the sale of the farm if that was on the agenda?
I cannot comment. I cannot commit to that at this time.
But you're saying that you want better legal advice? or different legal advice, our new state's attorney's advice?
I wanted to postpone so the new state's attorney could provide her legal advice. I always like to have as much legal advice as you can get.
I understand. Thank you for your
Maybe I can
comments.
find out. I don't know the rules on that, sorry.
But I mean, so my purpose of asking that question is, I remember a meeting, I believe it was a couple of years ago, maybe 3, where a decision was made on EMA, and then I believe you rescinded the vote. I can't quite remember what that was over, but I think it had something to do with ambulance service of some sort. And I believe a vote was rescinded. Anybody remember that?
I do. I remember
Okay.
that, yeah.
Yep, so that is a possibility. And I think Carol, as farm chair, you could put that on the agenda, and I'd like to see it there. And so, like Christine said, the people that live in her district, which is the same district as Mr. Williams, don't want to see our farm sold. And I would like to see rescind the sale of the farm on the next agenda. You have a new state's attorney, and you would have time to get legal advice on what her opinion is, if it's constitutional, and her view on public purpose. And so if you could get, I'm requesting, and I know she's busy because she just came into office, but I would hope that maybe she could give a few words on what her position is on farming, and then put that back on put it back on the agenda and see what the advice is, and let's see what happens. Because I think it's important to let the people have an opportunity to think about the decision they made. I think some people went home after they made the decision, were not really comfortable with it when they found out their constituents were not happy. So, just something to consider.
Okay,
Thank
I'll
you.
find out. Any other public body comment?
I feel like Christine does, it should be farmed. Once it's sold, there'll never be any other income off of that land. It'll be gone. So I just think it should be farmed.
Any other public body comment?
I have a question. I recently received my tax bill.
You did?
Yes,
Interesting.
I'm one of the few, but yeah. Anyway, it's gone up $400. Is my tax bill going up because there's no money coming in off this farm? Why is my tax bill going up that much? I have a townhouse. I don't have a farm. I don't even have a freestanding house. But my tax bill went up $400.
That would be a question for Debbie Dunaway in the assessor's office.
But you see where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Her tax bill tells her where it went up.
There
It's-
are
It's either the
hands.
multiplier or,
It's usually the school stuff driving it up, or that kind of thing.
but the state mandates,
That-
yeah, the state mandates that. And
The
it's,
multiplier, is that what you're
I
saying?
think is that right? Anybody know anything about that?
As a county, we voted on that 20 years ago, didn't we, to go to be a P-TEL?
Yeah,
And that's, we don't have control over that
yeah,
now.
yeah.
So the budget you have for next year has nothing to do with our tax dollars.
We don't have a budget for next year yet.
I thought it was already agreed on.
Not 2025. We don't do that till July. I believe every department then gives their budget to, what's his name? Bruce.
The budget committee will begin putting next year's budget
Yes,
together
There's
before long.
there's a guy that does it with us, that calls us and tells us.
Bellwether.
Yeah, Bellwether.
Yeah, Bruce.
Bruce Bellwether. He goes over the budget with all the committee people. Like they called me last year about the farm budget, you know, how I wanted, what I wanted in it, and just decided to have it the same as it was the year before. It was kind of easy for me, but you know, other departments have a lot bigger budgets.
Carol?
But Bellwether, yeah, Teresa.
The
you
last
probably
time I
know.
talked to Bellwether, he hadn't gotten a return letter from the county requesting his services. Does anybody know if they've even contacted him about helping? The last time I talked to him, he hadn't been contacted.
But the 25 budget will be worked on in July, I believe, and then the new year starts December 1st. So what we're working on now goes through November 30th, the 2024 budget. Sorry.
People around here saying they can't hear.
Did y'all hear me? Did that answer your question, Ken?
Somewhat.
Okay. But I would suggest you talk to Debbie Dunaway in the assessor's office, and I think they can explain it. Or the board of review.
They're back in session.
Okay, and I think they're there on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they're not here every day. are they?
They're not here every day.
Yeah,
They're
Wednesday,
here till
Thursday, Friday,
noon
board of review.
on certain days, only till noon.
And they're the ones, I believe they're the ones, yeah.
I expected it to go up somewhat. Nothing stays the same in this economy, but
Well, a few months back, we all got like a projected tax thing, and I think everybody's went up, and it was because of that multiplier and something else. I'm sorry. I'm not a tax person, so. Any other public comment? Public comment? Public comments? Okay. There is none, so we'll go to number 4. I don't know if you all have an agenda or not. So number 4 is to discuss and vote to send to the full board Stu Fox has offered to plant beans again. The county will have to pay for the chemicals amounting to about $23,468, and the insurance is $803. Actually, the insurance is in with, I sent you all that projection that he sent me, the chemicals and the crop insurance together, he came up with $22,470. Did you all get that? He has the seed beans donated. We had noxious weeds at the farm. If we plant beans, it will take care of noxious weeds. We won't be in trouble with the health department. He has also offered to mow the waterways, the road, the cemetery, the lane at no cost to the county, which is quite a savings. I mean, this is huge, I think, what he is offering, just because he loves the farm and doesn't want to see the farm go to waste. So I'm going to make a motion that we send this offer to the full board. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
But can I make a comment since I
Sure, hang on
seconded?
just a second, we'll talk. Sorry, I have to write all this down.
That's all right.
It's treated last.
Now we can comment, discussion on this.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. But do we not need that resolution to go to the board first to farm the farm? And then this could go?
We aren't hiring a farmer.
Okay, all right.
This isn't a private farmer that is making a profit from this. This is what I understand. He's not making a profit. He is donating his time and his resources. And what we're paying for are basically the inputs.
So my question is this: if he plants this crop and the farm gets sold,
He gets the harvest.
okay,
We would have to make something in there that he plants it, he would get the harvest from that. Well, he would get it because he would sell it and give it to the county. Okay?
okay,
Just like he did last time. We got $174 for that 2 years ago when he did this. So he would harvest it, have a check made out to the county, so the county is not losing anything.
I was more worried about him being offended or upset because of something in there, so.
What do you mean?
Well, if, you know, if he planted the crop and was taking care of it, and then it sold, and then
Oh, and that person got the,
got the crop or whatever, you know, and he had donated his time and equipment, and then, but I'm with you.
I think we put that in this provision that he gets, that the county gets the proceeds from the harvest, yes.
So this is a type of custom farm arrangement then?
I guess, like last time he gave us $1, if it was $1, then,
Has this been bid out?
doesn't have to be that out, he's doing it for free. Do you know somebody else who's gonna do it for free?
No. What I do understand is that it needs to be bid out. The law says it needs to be bid out.
It wasn't last time.
It's not.
Yeah, it wasn't last time, he did it.
That doesn't make last time right. It still needs to be bid out.
I don't think so.
No, it doesn't think so.
Not our donation.
I mean, he's offering, he could go out there right now and plant those beans, he's offering to do this for free.
It's a donation.
No money.
It's a donation.
But I believe the law requires it to be bid out.
Can you show me that law?
I don't have the statute right in front of me. It just occurred to me. I believe that you might want to ask before we take anything to the board or approve anything here. You might want to ask the state's attorney about that statute there too.
No.
I don't know.
I don't think it has to be that.
Why would it need to be bid out? It's a free donation.
Yeah, it is, it's a
It's
donation.
a free donation.
Plus, he is saving, do you know how much money he's saving us?
Yeah.
By mowing? It's $500 every time Kenny Thompson mows out there, and he mowed twice. The cemetery looks like hell.
I'll call Ruth and ask her.
So my,
I want to say something about, the cemetery needs to be taken care of. We have 2 Civil War veterans that are buried out there that we don't pay attention to. These people, these 75 people that we know of that are buried there are at least 100 that are buried. Thank you. We're showing no respect whatsoever by letting that cemetery go. I was there the other day and the weeds are past my knees. I can't even find Melinda Fluke's stone, and I have a metal flag in there to show where her stone is, and I can't find it. To me, that's so disrespectful. Stu has offered to mow that cemetery as many times as needed. Right now, he could probably bale hay up there. It's so tall.
so,
And you can't drive down Lane because the weeds are taller than your knees. You can't go down in a car.
so I believe this may still need to be bid out. But one, I think Ms. Matlock stepped out to call the state's attorney, and that's fine, but I want to encourage us to get something in writing and not take an off-the-cuff opinion that we know of been thoroughly researched. So, you know, taking an off-the-cuff opinion winds up getting you in trouble sometimes.
You
Because
just lost me.
I think if
You've
we're
got
going
an opinion?
what's that?
What are you talking about?
An opinion, a written legal opinion on whether or not it needs to be bid out.
Okay.
So, because if it does and we don't, then that's a violation of the law.
Can that be done and still added on next week's agenda? Carol, is there time for you to do that?
Actually, next week is about the last week we can probably plant weeds.
And he knows that.
Yes, and you know that, Jeremy.
Yeah.
This is a stall tactic, I feel,
Yes.
because you do not want to farm.
You are correct, I do
Yes,
not want to.
yes.
That's
And this is a
his
stall
farm. She
tactic.
needs to step off the farm.
Because we would rather spend $10,000 to $20,000. We would rather spend $10,000 to $20,000 to burn weeds and to discount. We have to get rid of the weeds.
Yes.
We are going to get fined if we do not get rid of the weeds. So we're going to spend money and get nothing in return, or we're going to spend money and be guaranteed about $100,000. with insurance. We are guaranteed $100,000 per
No
shot.
brainer.
The other concern that I had was, the county will pay for chemicals and insurance. So those are part of the inputs, which are part of the investments in operating a farm. And any farmer will tell you there is some risk associated with farming. And any investment into the input would be an investment into a risk.
We have no risk because if we buy insurance, we're guaranteed.
Insurance does not mean you're not taking a risk.
Everything's a risk.
Insurance actually acknowledges and admits that we are taking a risk, and that risk would be taken with taxpayer money. There is no
So
permission.
$74,000.
There is no permission anywhere in statute that I'm aware of to invest taxpayer money in anything that bears any risk.
So you want to spend $20,000 to kill the weeds, and that's taxpayer money that you don't get. That means nothing.
That would be maintaining our property, which we have statutory authority to do, and it's not a risk. It's,
Walked away with the money.
How do the rest of you guys see this that are sitting there quiet? What do you guys think on this?
the only kinds of things that the Public Funds Investment Act permits investment in are things like interest-bearing accounts, things that bear no risk to the principal.
Oh, there's risk in Shelby County. There's a lot of risk, like 4% worth of risk there.
So
4% minimum.
it's things like bonds, and I've got it pulled up right here. It's bonds, it's going to be savings accounts, it's going to be CDs, things that bear no risk to the principal. But taking out insurance, yes, is a risk mitigation tool, but it acknowledges and admits that we still take the risk. It is proof that we are taking a risk with taxpayer money.
And this is your legal opinion.
Okay.
No,
Ken,
actually,
you got anything to say about this?
Yeah, I feel like it's a mistake to sell the farm. However, at the last board meeting, there was a vote taken, and the majority voted to sell the farm. I don't agree with it. I think it's a mistake. But that's what the vote was, 12-9, I believe.
12-7.
Okay?
There were 19 people there.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean we can't have a crop this year before it sells. We don't know when it's going to sell. It could be next winter. I mean, right? It hasn't been appraised. It hasn't been surveyed.
You make a good point. I feel like the vote was taken to sell it.
You voted the farm.
No, he did without legal opinion.
I'm sorry, I voted it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I voted, yes,
yeah.
yes, I did.
Yeah.
But we lost.
Yeah.
We lost.
So do you feel like we shouldn't grow a crop while we have all the weeds out there? Get as much as we can, and then when it sells, yeah.
What would it hurt to have Ruth come and discuss the options and the legalities of it,
I don't know if,
you know?
I don't know if that matters, Crystal. Not we, but the board voted to sell the farm.
But without a current legal opinion.
Do you think that's going to change the vote?
I think it could. Sean expressed concern, he'd like to speak with Ruth about it. He didn't really elaborate on how he tried to do it twice and it didn't happen, but I would think Ruth would be approachable for him to discuss it with her and to get some answers, because I think everybody needs some answers. Because
Yes.
Jeremy's legal opinion is not a legal opinion, it's his opinion. He's not.
Each of you should be
he's
speaking
not a
to
lawyer.
Ruth on your own.
But it would be prudent, I think, for everyone to step back and say, whoa, we gotta stop this in its tracks. This is a very volatile issue. We need Ruth to come in and sit down and let us answer some questions.
Okay. What we got on the agenda right now is about stupid, it isn't about selling the farm.
Carol?
Can I say something since I am on the board?
Sure.
Why is it such a hard thing to think that you could have Stu farming you could get some revenue off of it, and even if you sell it, that money goes into the general fund to help pay bills. How hard is that for people to understand? If any one of you had that option with your own personal finances, you would walk away from it?
Yes, you would.
No, I wouldn't.
Oh, God.
Then why are you doing that with our farm, Jeremy?
Okay.
Because it is not, Ms. Chairman, if I may, it is not the role of the government to be a proactive player in the private sector. It is not the role of government to compete economically with its own constituents.
Jeremy, no legal opinion?
It is, if it were private ground, as was just said, then a private citizen would not have this problem. They could do any of the above options that we've discussed, and probably a lot that we haven't. But I am going to make the motion to table until we can do exactly what has been suggested, and that is get a written legal opinion from the state's attorney on
Guys,
specifically addressing whether or not we can invest taxpayer funds in a risk, and whether or not it needs to be bid out. If I could get a second.
take a vote.
There's already a motion on the table. Sorry.
I think Jeremy's talked to Mr. Hanlon more than anybody sitting up there, and I know that they've had conversations about it.
Okay, Jeremy has made a motion to table. Is there a second?
Don't. Should you talk to
Table fails.
Let me state your motion again.
I made the motion to table until we get a written legal opinion from the state's attorney on whether or not we can invest
And knowing if you table it, it's too late to plant a crop.
Yeah.
taxpayer money into a risk investment.
There's no risk, Jeremy.
And on whether or not it needs to be bid out.
There was no second.
table it and don't go on the meeting next week?
Can
It's
you-
too
Steve
late.
Can you table it and have a call meeting next week before the board meeting?
Why is he so generous to do this?
Because he's a farmer, he's always been a farmer, he's like a third generation farmer, maybe four. He hates to see the ground grow and grow up in weeds. He did this for us 2 years ago. The county ended up with $174,000, which more than paid for the assistant state's attorney's severance package. And the other person, $12,500 that nobody knows.
Who?
And it's not taxpayer money. That is revenue from the crop. It is not taxpayer money. And I know Jeremy likes to say, once you put that money into the general fund, it's taxpayer money. But it is not. We sold that crop, it went into the general fund, and it goes out and pays for all sorts of stuff.
It is
Pays
still
for
public
everything.
funds. It is public funds.
It is public funds. It is not taxpayer money.
Those
It is
terms,
not taxes on your tax form
Right.
that pay for any of that. That is free money from the sale of that crop.
but those two terms are interchangeable. This is public funds.
But it's not taxpayer money, but like you said.
Okay, so it's public fund, it's still.
It's public funds, but it is not taxpayer money. So taxpayers, if you looked on your tax bill, it did not say that this money went to the farm. It just went into the general fund and it paid for the state's attorney's office. It paid for W. Dunaway or anybody. It was a huge amount of money.
Who was donating the CDs?
Somebody that's Stu, I don't know who it is, but if you want me to call him, I
No,
can.
it's all right.
What did it come up with?
So we had any more discussion on,
I'm kind of leaning toward, let's go ahead and plant beans.
Yes. Makes sense.
The public purpose of doing so is what? The public purpose of the use of the land when planting beans is what?
is to pay for, county expenses and to relieve the burden of the taxpayers.
So,
I guess,
so making money then, we're gonna call making money a public purpose. That's what you're saying. We're gonna go into private business. When the Supreme Court has already ruled that counties are not authorized to go into private business.
The Illinois Supreme Court has held that the statutes are presumed to be constitutional, and the Supreme Court has held that the legislature decides what a public purpose is.
So in Dunn versus the County of Rock Island and Yankee versus Johnson, when the Supreme Court ruled that counties are not authorized to enter into private business, we're going to compete with our own constituents, our local farmers.
Competing with anybody?
Absolutely.
What's wrong with you?
Absolutely we are.
The new Farm Bill recognizes the farming as serving a public purpose and that the revenue is used to pay county expenses and relieves the burden on the taxpayers.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
public purpose.
Didn't they,
Farming the
And so
farm
they
makes
should
it more
push-
valuable.
didn't they remove that? Wasn't that in this the first amendment in the Senate? Because they had in there funding the operations of the government, like was said earlier, and the Senate removed that language. They removed that before they passed HB 1076 because they saw the constitutional concern.
I do remember that they asked the senator if he was trying to change the Constitution, and he said, no, he was not trying to change the Constitution. I do remember reading that when I did all the research on that 1076 bill.
Yeah, Senator Plummer was asked that
Yeah.
in Springfield in session right before they voted on that. No, we still have to.
1076 says you do not have to have a specific purpose.
Correct, and that is you don't designate. Like a couple of years ago, the board considered farming to farm and allocating the profits to courthouse maintenance.
Right, you can't designate it.
You can't do that.
Just goes
So-
into the general fund, it pays for stuff. It's paying the $74,000 to what's her name?
So
You're a lawyer.
designating the profits from the farm is a specific public purpose. You don't designate a specific public purpose.
We're not designating.
You're gonna put it in your pocket.
We're not designating anything, it's going into the general
I
fund.
didn't say we were. I'm giving an example while I lead into something. If we were to designate, that would be a specific public purpose.
Motion died, there was no second.
But we can't.
That would be a specific public purpose, but we can't do that. And that's why you don't have a specific public purpose. It removed the requirement because you never have a requirement for that. So, but you still have to have a public purpose. You don't put it toward this or put it toward that or put it toward the next thing. It has to have a public purpose in a general sense.
Okay, we're gonna vote on this?
Could I? Okay.
Yeah.
Wouldn't farming the farm be a public purpose in itself? It's, well, the noxious weeds are a problem. If we knock down the weeds, that's serving a public purpose.
So you disc the weeds under.
That's another option, yeah.
That's $6,000.
My challenge is with everything that Stu's offering to donate, it's like our cost is almost equal. Like, I agree in principle with everything, but I'm like, well, we're gonna have the same, discing the weeds, yeah, it solves the problem today, but a month from now, the weeds are back.
The cover crops are the same problem.
You do not do a cover crop until the fall.
But
We don't do a cover
we're
crop.
spending, we're spending money that will not generate any income. I'm like, well,
So if your principle of public purpose is over here and the donation is over here, how much are the principles worth? Are they worth the farm inputs? Are they worth the constitutional violation? Are they worth,
It's not a constitutional law.
are they worth abandoning the oath of office to honor the Constitution or uphold the Constitution?
We voted to sell it, Jeremy.
Yeah.
We're farming it
Roll call,
one
Carol.
more time.
Yeah.
Then let's plant a cover crop. Let's do something good for the
Cover
soil.
crop does not happen until the fall. You don't do a cover crop.
There's no income off of cover crop.
Okay, I'm gonna call for a vote. Jeremy?
What exactly are we doing?
Oh, we're voting on number 4 for Stu to plant the beans. The county will pay for the inputs, the chemical and the insurance. The seedlings are donated. Stu will mow the waterways, the roads, the cemetery at no cost to the county.
I vote yes.
Tim, yes. Jeremy?
No.
Carol, yes. Sean?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
4
Thank
yeses, 1 no. Passes. Okay, so we will put that on the agenda for, and I will talk to Ruth about stuff. Number 5 is discuss and vote on mowing the county farm only if it isn't farm, so I don't even know if we need to go over this. I talked to Kenny Compton, he mowed twice last year at $500 each time, but he did not mow the cemetery more than twice, and I feel like the cemetery needs to be mowed more. And Stu says he would take care of it as many times as it needs to be mowed,
Do we need
which
to,
I think is quite generous.
do we need to vote to send this to the board in case item 4 fails at the full board? Because if item 4 fails at the full board, then we're back to square one with nobody mowing and everything else. Do we need to vote? I'm just trying to cover all our bases here,
Right.
because we're gonna have a mess, we got a mess out there now, we need to.
We do have a mess. So let me read this. So it's discuss and vote on mowing the county farm only if the ground is not farm. Kenny Compton will mow waterways and cemetery for $500 each time. To disc the entire farm, approximately 200 acres, he charged us $6,000 last fall. So if we don't farm it, and we have to mow it, I believe it still has to have a burn down. I'm not sure the disking would take care of it. That's just another, burn down's like $9,000. And that's basically the first pass.
I don't know that you have to burn down it.
When he dissed it last year, it was so hard because we hadn't had any rain that actually we have weed growing out at the farm right now. It's volunteer weed you have to walk through the weed to get to the cemetery. And the weeds are not quite as tall as the weed, but they're tall. Yeah, if you disked it now to get rid of it, it would have to be done again.
Unless you get a cover crop or beans planted in
But
it.
you don't do a cover crop now.
You can do, I read from the U of I that you can do cover crops in both warm season and fall. There's some cover crops you can do in the spring and the summer, and then there's cover crops that you can do in the fall. So I was researching that cover crop because it was on the agenda.
Okay, well, let's go back to, let's wait to do that.
Okay,
when
that's
we get
fine.
there. So does somebody want to make a motion to put the mowing on the agenda? Or do you want to skip it?
I'll make a motion that if it's not, that if the county farm is not voted on to be farmed this year, that we entertain this. Do we need to take bids for mowing?
No.
Because normally I thought we had to take bids for everything.
As long as it falls under the bid threshold.
So I'll make a motion that if the county farm is not voted on to be farmed, we send this to the county board for approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, 10 seconds.
We've got to do something with it.
Right, something has to be done. Okay. Any other discussion on Kenny Compton? Any more? If not, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
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 Opposed? Same sign. All yeses. Carried. Number 6 is discuss and vote to receive bids for a cover crop, including chemical seed applications, planting, and hiring a farmer. On Stu's proposal, he also had cover crop estimates, and his estimate came up to $16,000, a little over $16,000. That was to spray the chemical, because you have to have a burn down first. You have to get rid of the weeds. And then the crop, the drilling. You have to hire a farmer, this just doesn't get done by itself. Jeremy had a proposal but it didn't say anything about hiring a farm.
Yeah, I reached out to Kenny, and he didn't get back with me with an email, but he did, he did discuss with me. He and several others mentioned Kitchen Seeds, which is a place in Arthur. They specialize in small seed like that. There were a few options. The one that he recommended was to do, he said barley is good ahead of corn because rye and corn can carry the same kinds of diseases. So you put rye ahead of beans and barley ahead of corn. He said barley at 49 cents a pound at 50 pounds an acre. And he also recommended to mix some radish in there because that will help put some nitrogen back in the soil. That will be good for the soil. Radishes at $2 a pound at 5 pounds an acre. So, and I told him just use the rough average at 200 acres, and that came out to $6,900 for that mix to help put nitrogen back in the soil. It would also keep the weeds down. And for application purposes, I spoke with Kenny, and he
Is not going to do it.
no. Okay.
She doesn't have an interest in
Okay. That's. He told you something different than he told me.
it. Did he tell you that he would do it?
Let's see.
From what I understand, the farmers like horseshoe, radish and the other green cannot be sown at the same time, so that's different passes, that's not just one pass.
I believe you can mix those in. That's what I've been told.
I've always did it together, but
Yeah,
that's,
You do radishes?
When I
I did
researched,
radish, turnips, and red clovers together, just out of a spinner truck, and then we just did it.
yeah, just, they,
And then I also heard that radishes smell really bad and it's like somebody died.
That's actually, them or turnips, one or the other, canned, but you'd have to have a really thick
Yeah.
stand, like, I really don't think at that rate it'd be a problem.
Yeah. So Kenny said there were different options. You can drill those in, or you can broadcast them and disc them in.
And he doesn't drill.
What's that?
He does not drill, I believe.
Didn't he drill the wheat?
I don't think,
Yeah, he farmed a wheat crop last year. He drilled the wheat in.
Did he drill it though? Like, I mean, we used to just weed it too. I mean, I don't know how he did it.
okay, but he said he would do it.
He said, let's see here. If you want me to disc in the barley, turnips, and radishes, which is really just barley and radishes, I could do it for $30 an acre. And again, the same offer as last year for the mowing that you already had in there. So, and I've discussed the possibility with some different folks, and because of the weeds, you could disc the weeds down, broadcast the seed, disc it in. Or you could disc the weeds and drill the seed in. The drilling is the better option for it to take root and come up and germinate and all that. But a second pass with the disc isn't a bad idea either. And
Can
Kenny,
someone clarify what it costs an acre? All total versus beans, that's what I want to know. Because you're coming up with all these numbers, and by the time you're got all said and done, may as well just put beans in and got an income off of it, because the cover crop gets tilled under.
Carol, that's Tim, he's going.
Well, I mean, they're saying $30 an acre to disc, so
yeah,
so
that's what he charged last year.
that's $6,000. And then if you either disc it in again or drill it, assuming that's $30 an acre a second time, so there's another 6, so there's 12 if you've got to make 2 passes. And then I guess you wouldn't have a burn down, then you'd have your seed cost, which was what, 7,000 almost?
Yeah, 7,000.
So that's 19.
And what would the bean price be, just for beans? Knowing you're gonna get a profit off of it. Because the intention of a cover crop, correct me if I'm wrong, people that don't know, it's to improve the organics of the soil. If you've got a really heavily clay, sometimes they'll do things like triticale and all these other mixes and turnips and stuff to add some of that back to the soil. So you don't get a crop off of it. You don't sell anything.
typically correct.
Yeah.
Sometimes people bail out, but I mean, erosion control, in our case, the cover crop in my mind is to choke the weeds out so that we're not spraying it or disking
If we're gonna
it.
sell it, why would we have a cover crop?
It would put nitrogen back in the soil.
Why would
which-
we?
Why?
Why would you care if putting the nitrogen back in it if somebody's gonna buy the product?
Which would make it more marketable.
As the, from a nitrogen,
$19,000.
Over the course of the whole farm.
as I say, from a nitrogen standpoint, I don't necessarily care, but buying 200 acres that's got, you know, noxious weeds this tall versus buying 200 acres that has some cover crop, there is, to Jeremy's point, value in there being cover crop on it and it not having that weed bank, so.
How much value does it have when when it's producing a crop though, Heath? It's producing, let's say, I don't know, 80 bushel acre beans,
Yeah, I mean,
260 bushel acre corn. How much
Again-
value has that got versus cover crop? You know it'll produce something.
It depends on which point of view you're looking at. Are you looking at it from the county's point of view as income, or are you looking at it as somebody buying it? I
We
mean,
shouldn't be worried about somebody buying it. That's the whole point.
You know, if we,
It's about what's best for all
if
of
we
us.
dissed it twice and then put the cover crop in, the radishes and barley, right? Then that's 19K.
Right.
And chemicals alone, according to Stu's, is 21K, so that's, and then the crop insurance, you spend 22K or you spend 19K?
Did you get revenue?
With the 22, hey, you get income.
Money back. You get money.
Only if they go to farming,
Yeah,
and
right.
only if the mountain people go to farming.
I got news for you. Cover crop is farming.
I would,
What'd you say, Sean?
You're real smart, Mr. Brewer.
Did you have something else, James?
no,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead, finish up. So do we have a motion for this? Or-
I'll make the motion to do the cover crop with the, from Kitchen C with the numbers provided for barley and radishes. And for Kenny to do what he said he would do, unless he told you something different since he spoke to me.
Carol, can you text him and see? if
Kenny
he's-
says he cannot drill the seed, he would need somebody else to do that. All he can do is disc the ground.
And he could broadcast it and disc it
Disc
in.
the ground, and I have no way of planting, he says.
How did he plant the wheat then?
He probably just used
He would disc for $30 an acre and mow the grass and waterways for 5 years. So he will not do the cover crop.
He could, I think he told me he could broadcast it and disc it in. Or we could have, I think South Central has done our stuff before, hasn't it? Is that
But we
right?
don't know how much that is. We have no idea how much that is. All we know is that the seed is $1,600. Other than that, we don't have any other numbers.
Wouldn't it have to be bid out?
And to me, that's like farming. You want to put that out for bid, that's farming, just like anything else.
He did tell me on Monday that he would disc in barley, turnips, and radishes, which this is just barley and radishes, and he'd do it for $30 an acre, the same as disking. That's what he told me he would do.
and then we have an application fee for somebody to spread it, right? For
That's another
FS or
cost.
whoever to spread
I
it.
mean, you have to have all those things.
And it's all farming.
We can do that.
And it's farming.
It's gonna be $7 or $8 an acre.
So is that custom farming? Because it's farming.
Sure
Just
sounds
like,
like it.
just like Stu's farm. Yeah.
That would just be maintenance of the property.
Wouldn't that have to be
Oh,
bid
would that
out?
have to be bid out though, like the lawn mowing and stuff?
As long as it falls beneath the bid threshold, then no.
That's farming, Jeremy. That's not maintenance, that's farming.
You're gonna farm it for nothing. What's the bid threshold?
For nothing.
Bid threshold's 30.
you just said you were gonna have to put it out for bid and Stu was gonna firm it for free. But if it falls underneath the bid threshold, you don't have to bid it out. So what's the bid threshold? Stu's gonna do it for nothing. So what's the bid threshold? You gotta give you $10?
It was $1 last time.
Oh, sorry, $1. Well, I mean, come on. We gotta put it out for bid. No, we don't. For Christ's sake, talking out both sides of your mouth.
Okay, so Jeremy's made a motion on
It's
this.
determined, not.
I thought we already had a motion to plant beans. And
We did,
thought
but
that
this is a
was
motion
to do
for
it.
the cover crop. If-
We're sending it to the full board,
Just
but what if
send
the
it to
full board doesn't? I think we need to send options. I mean,
Okay,
if we send one thing and the board votes no on farming,
on the
or
beans.
putting the beans, then we're screwed, then we're back to
I
square one
got
and
you.
another
Well,
month down the road.
Is if the,
Okay.
if somebody decides they don't want to present.
I'll second Jeremy's motion on the cover crop, just in case the beans don't.
I got you, okay. And,
We gotta do something with that land out there.
But we still don't have numbers.
We can't have probably by the board meeting.
Absolutely.
What's that?
We can't have by the board meeting,
Okay.
I'm sure, so.
That's next Thursday. Yeah. By Tuesday to have it on the
Tuesday.
agenda.
Yeah.
Have to have it by Tuesday for the agenda. All those in favor of covered crop?
I,
yes.
How many hours are going?
a little for it.
All of you?
Yes.
Four yeses and one no. I'm going to vote no. Okay. We have any old business? We have a minute, so there isn't a whole lot to. No old business, we have any new business? No new business? Sean, you have anything?
Yep.
Okay, Tim?
No.
Are we done?
I'll
Make
make
a motion to adjourn?
I'll
All right, Sean makes a motion to adjourn. Did somebody second it?
I'll second.
10 seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All yeses? Okay, an hour. Hey, that's good. Thank you, everybody.
We have public safety tomorrow evening, guys.
Yeah, public safety tomorrow night at 6:30.
And I don't know, 6
I
or
won't be
something.
there.
Okay.
I told
You talked to
Tad
Okay.
that I would not be there. I gotta teach class tomorrow,
Okay.
final class.
All right, good.
I appreciate you standing up and advocating last board meeting for that, and I wish the other two could come with you and make a passionate, as passionate of a thing, and I think more people might come along if it wasn't just, come on. But
Sorry about last month. I was tired.
When I was talking to you at the bar, at the cookout, and I didn't forget all about Monday. I had an officers meeting and association meeting, I forgot all about it. Thank you. You definitely, thank you.
Yeah, I can't move those chairs there and put that up there.
Over the road.
I can probably get it. Not yet, not yet. I will here in just a minute.
It should be off while everybody's talking.
Yeah, it should. It should be shut off.
We can do that.
Go shut that off, Jerry.
This is Tricia Bailey, order. Pick up, please.